Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So, today we're continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA D10 Nano project. I got a fun video for you guys this evening because just yesterday, Jotego and his team released 4 new cores, or 4 new games that run on the JT House core. This came out last November to host Splatterhouse, and it's on the Namco System 1 hardware. But because that hardware is the basis for a lot of different games, Jotego and his team have now expanded that out to include 4 more games. Before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But the first of the 4 games we're going to talk about is Pistol Daimyo. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is an absolutely absurd game, and I would say of all the games on this board, getting Splatterhouse first would definitely be my favorite because it is my favorite game on the board. But Pistol Daimyo is definitely a fun game, but I will tell you right now, it is quite challenging both in the controls as well as its difficulty. When you die in this game, you are going to be pushed back. When you die too many times, you're going to have game over. It is as simple as that. This is that generation of games where the difficulty was definitely spiking. You have very interesting controls and you don't have an auto fire whatsoever, so you are going to have to beat this button like it owes you money to get any shots out, and some of the enemies in here are absolute bullet sponges. But that doesn't mean it's not a fun game, it just means that be prepared for challenge. There's going to be a lot of things on screen at once and you're going to have to deal with each and every one of them. Now I will say it's been a very long time since I have played this game, but what's on offer here on the core being a beta seems to be pretty close to what I would expect this game to be. I think I played this in arcades maybe 6-7 years ago. I did get through the entire thing because it was on free play, but it did take me a minute and my memory's a little bit rusty. So if you know this game and you love it, tell me down below what you think of it. But as far as the sound, the graphics, the appearance, the gameplay, I really can't find anything out that isn't working. And again, this is all down to the Namco System 1 establishment work Jotego and his team did last November and October for Splatterhouse. Again, this is still my favorite game on the entire board, but having Pistol Daimyo is a fun time. Now these are 4 added games, but there's still a decent amount on the Namco System 1 that can and will come to this core, so I'm sure in the future you should expect more stuff. And you'll see here, we get to the boss, but of course the game pauses right when there's a projectile coming out, guaranteeing a death the minute the game restarts. But it does have eggplants, and I know how much my audience loves a big juicy eggplant, so there is that going for you. But again, if you've never checked this game out before, it is available now for Patreon members, and it is worth playing around. It kind of has some Pocky Rocky vibes to me, even though obviously the gameplay is completely different, just in the overall wacky art style. And honestly, a Sakura Blossom boss whose tree comes out of its head is a fun time, even if it makes no sense. So definitely check this one out. I would probably say it's like the C tier of Namco System 1 games. Now moving on to another game, Dragon Spirit here. This is a tate or vertical shmup, and this one is a lot of fun. And honestly, if this just isn't what happens to McCloud and Highlander, I don't know what it is, because I'm pretty sure this is now Highlander canon. But this is another fun game, and I would probably put this in the B tier. It is definitely hard, it's definitely challenging, and you're not going to respawn where you die. You're going to be sent back a little bit as well, but that's just how shmups worked back in the day. And this one I have played recently, just kind of giving it another chance and another look, and this here seems to be exactly what I would expect the game to play like. And I love that there's flying squirrels in it as well, or I'm pretty sure those might be Mothman. And if you're not familiar, Mothman lives in Chicago where I live, and I've been trying to find him for a very long time. No sightings as of yet. But this one is another great game to have. It's always fun to get more shmups on MiSTer, and it's one of my favorite genres, and I know you guys love it too. And this one has a definite monster vibe going on, because there's just a bunch of Loch Ness monsters down there, or the Champlain monster if you grew up in Vermont like I did. You'll see here there's all these different birds with these feather projectiles, and the game can get very difficult. This one stage where you have to use this light on your dragon to see what's going on can every once in a while feel slightly unfair, but you learn the patterns, you understand what the game's asking of you, and you can and will improve. And that is the fun part about shmups, is that you really have to practice at them, but every single time you get better, you feel that satisfaction of learning the game, and it really does drive you forward to want to learn it more. So it's always great when we get another shmup on MiSTer FPGA. And this one has a pretty fun soundtrack as well, so I'll give you 45 seconds to listen to what's going on here, and I'll come back and show you the 2 other games that now work on the Namco System 1 core. But enjoy, because the soundtrack is quite good in my opinion. Definitely sounds good coming out of the core. So the next game we're going to take a look at is Blast Off, and the game after that is going to be Dangerous Seed. And let this be a reminder from me to you, don't blast off your Dangerous Seed. But you can tell we have another vertical or tate shmup here, and I would say this one definitely has a more advanced graphical stylings for the Namco System 1 board. Don't forget this board was on the market for a decent amount of years, and just like consoles, when a manufacturer uses a board for a dozen or more games, you will see a big difference in the graphical stylings from some of the first games that come out for it towards some of the later games. That's just how it happens. I just kind of like this when you have this nice space epic battle here, and this one has more of that sci-fi theming than the fantasy monsters. Some of the animations on the ships as well almost feel like pre-rendered sprites, but it definitely is just animation. This one I just really do like. It's like a B+ tier for me. I would say the only game so far on the core that hits that A tier is going to be Splatterhouse, but that's just because I have such a fond memory of playing that in the arcades back in the day when I was a kid, and I've owned a copy of it ever since on multiple different platforms. But Blast Off here is a lot of fun. It kind of reminds me of ASO on the SNK boards and ASO 2 on Neo Geo. Not so much in the graphics here. Obviously Neo Geo on ASO 2 could outdo this any day of the week and twice on Sundays, but more in the weapon system, more in the futuristic setting. This just kind of has those ASO 2 or Alpha Mission 2 vibes going on here, but leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think of that. This one I assume is probably a deep cut, and some people aren't going to realize what Blast Off is. And honestly, all four of these games are going to be deeper cuts even for Namco. I'm sure it wasn't just because it was Halloween that Jotego and his team released Splatterhouse first. It's also the most well-known game from that board, but there is still a decent amount to come from that board, and I can't wait to see that happen. I do like that he released 4 games at once, giving us a 4-pack to kind of check out over the weekend. This one's fun, it's got some good bosses in it, it's got some fun music as well, and it still has that definite challenge. So if you've never played this game before, check it out this weekend, give it a go. It is definitely worth like the 15-20 minutes you're going to spend with it, or maybe an hour depending on how good you are at shmups. But we still have one more game to talk about. I told you this is Blast Off, and now we're going to blast off that Dangerous Seed. It's going to be the third tate or vertical shmup in this video and in this core release set, and I would definitely say this is the most modern feeling of them, and probably the best of the 4 games on offer here. It was released in 1989, but it kind of plays more like a 1990 or 1991 shmup in my opinion, and you do still get a fun monster theme, and at least with the pipes here, I get a light HR Geeker vibe going on. Definitely not going that far into the aliens territory, but it is just kind of what I get here. This one just feels a little bit more like the shmups that the modern era had in the 90s. It kind of feels like it's straddling both eras, and I really like that. I appreciate that it's both a monster aesthetic as well as a sci-fi aesthetic, marrying both of the ideas that we just talked about in the previous 2 games into one. And it's got a pretty awesome sci-fi soundtrack as well, so listen and I will be right back. Fun soundtrack, and I get a little bit of a Splatterhouse vibe in there as well, just with some of those instruments sounding a little bit on the horror spectrum. And you'll see here this gigantic spider beast with these webs that we just destroyed is now going to lead us into stage 2. If you're only going to play one of the 4 games on offer here, if you only have time for one, Dangerous Seed would be my recommendation. It just has the feel, the look, the control, and the style and modernization of the shmups we all know and love from the 90s, even though it released in 1989. It is definitely worth playing through. I love the enemy design, the music, the overall aesthetic. This one is just the one that I would play, and I think maybe that's just because it does slightly remind me of Splatterhouse in the music and in some of that monster design being ever so slightly gory. But that's the fun part. Jotego and his team gave us 4 new cores to play this weekend. There's still more to come on the Namco System 1, and I'm sure there's still a lot more from Jotego and his team coming forward into 2024, but this is always great to get 1 new core, let alone 4 new games playable on that core. But that's the current situation with the Namco System 1 core. You got 4 new games to play this weekend, and they range from great and Dangerous Seed to decent with the other 3. Leave me a comment down below and tell me what your favorite Namco System 1 game is, and what of the 4 games you saw here is either your favorite or the one you're going to play first if you've never played any of them. Make sure to that at Saturday night, watch this video, and then directly afterwards you should probably go out and do something fun, maybe have a beer or 2. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.